All right, Common Magician here with a follow-up to this latest Guess the Method trick. And I want to say that I'm making this before I've seen any comments, so I don't know if you figured any of this out or not. I'm guessing that you probably figured out some elements because of the manner in which this is presented. So we're dealing with a force, obviously, but this is a good example of how a force can be used in a complex way, and perhaps multiple layers of force in a complex way, so that the method cannot be apparent. The assumption would probably be that there's some sort of sleight of hand going on in here. Now, there is a little bit of sleight going on, but that has to do with the presentation of the deck rather than the method itself. Okay, so I want to talk a bit about a type of force that I don't know too many people use. I've used it a few times myself. It's not a very common one. There is a related type of force to it that is more common, and I don't like the one that's related because I think it's a little bit more apparent if you look at the deck of cards being used. And I prefer to do this one. I just want to talk about it. We've been talking a little bit recently about gaffed cards, and I did a tutorial there on the possibilities of making gaffs and a few tips and tricks that I'm offering you in your gaff making if you're going to be splitting cards and making gaffs. And that was related to a Guess the Method using a Hofzinser card, a ghost card. I'm going to talk a little bit about a very simple gaff here that you can make right away at home if you have some rubber cement, using it as contact cement, and just 2 cards. So you don't have to do any splitting on this. It's just a good card to have. And there's a couple of variations you can do with it. So what's going on in here is that I do have a regular deck of cards with a couple of additions to it. There are jokers at the beginning, and part of my presentation is that I take the jokers out of the deck, and everything fits inside the box. Now, I do have a full deck of 52, but I also have a couple of extras in there, plus the jokers. Now, a deck of cards comes with 4 cards spare to the 52 number and face cards. 2 of the cards are jokers, typically. And then there are usually 2 commercial cards that come in the box. So you know that in addition to 52, you can fit at least 4 additional cards in the box, and the cards will come out smoothly. And if they're coming out smoothly, it also means that you probably could get another card in there. So I have this maxed out. I have 5, the equivalent of 5 spare cards inside of this deck, in addition to the 52 normal cards that are in there. So 2 of them are the jokers. And then I also have a double card. That's this card right here. Now, a double card is very simple. It's just 2 cards that are glued together. So you have them glued face to back, so that you have a back, a regular back, and then a regular face, and it happens to be the force card as well. Now, this isn't the only 7 of hearts that I have in here, because there are multiple outs related to the forcing that I'm doing here. So I have a double card, which is a 7 of hearts with an extra card pasted to it, making it a double thickness. And this is going to be used for forcing a location. We'll talk about that in a moment. Now, right above that card, I have another 7 of hearts, and this is the regular 7 of hearts to the deck. So this is a regular 7 of hearts sitting right next to it. And then in the arrangement around this gets kind of complicated. This is a very thoroughly thought out effect here. Underneath my force card, my double card, I have a 2. Any 2, it doesn't matter. And then above my 7 of hearts on this side, I have another 2. Any 2, it doesn't really matter what it is. Okay. So now, the positions of these really matter. This 7 of hearts is at the 14th position from the top. Okay, so the outcome of this is forced from the onset. The 7 of hearts is at the 14th position from the top. So if you count down 14, I'll arrive at that 7 of hearts. Additionally, at the 9th position, this is the 5th card of the deck. So the first 2 cards are the jokers that are spare. So these are 2 spare cards. The next 2 cards that are spare is the double card. These are 2 foreign cards to the deck, and that counts for 2 more cards. And then the 5th card is an additional 7 of hearts, a duplicate from another deck. And I actually have this marked so I can pull it out later on using my favorite marking system. So it indicates 7 of hearts on there. And this is sitting at the 9th position down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so this is my setup. I have a duplicate 7 of hearts at the 9th position. I have the regular 7 of hearts at the 14th position. Above that, I have a 2 at the 13th position. Below this card, I have a double card, force card, which is a 7 of hearts. And below that, I have another 2. Okay, so this is a setup effect, a set deck. Now, the key to this then has to be the presentation of the deck when you're talking about how it's shuffled and it's normal, completely normal deck of cards. It is a normal deck of cards, except that it's been arranged and there's a couple of foreign cards in it. Otherwise, it is a completely normal deck. And you could, after doing this, go south with at least the force card and go on with a normal set of tricks, even with your spare duplicate in there. It really wouldn't matter. You could do any shuffled deck in use. And if you come to that 7 of hearts, either one of them, you could get rid of that as well. So this would be something that you do probably at the beginning of a set, the first trick that you do. It is a variation of an any card at any number. There is the assumption of a selection of any card. And given the fact that there's choice in the matter, it really drives home the idea that any card could have been selected, although the deck chooses which card it is, even though the locations are chosen by the spectator. And it's also an any number trick, based on the fact that there is a free selection in a card that gives you a number that you arrive at, and some choice and some math. Now, the choices are limited and the choices are forced, but it really is any card at any number. And this plays off of the recent video that I did on any card at any number. And I don't talk about this method, and it just drives home the point that any card at any number is a force trick. It's just a card force of some kind. You're forcing the end result or you're forcing the selections. You're doing one of those two. Okay, either via a stack or via a force of selections or via Confederate or via shifts and passes or some other kind of card manipulation to force the outcome. So it's just a card force. That's all it is. Now let's play this out how it works. So presentation really matters in this one because you want to subtly give the feeling that the cards are randomized. So the way this works is I take out the cards at the beginning. I say it's a normal deck of cards and I want to get rid of my jokers, so I take my jokers out. I don't need those. I show the first few cards to explain that they are out of order, and then I show the bottom 2/3 of the deck. So I don't get up to my 7 of hearts. I don't want to accidentally, especially on video, I don't want you to see this picture. And I certainly don't want you to see that there's 3 of them in there. So I show the first few cards like that. I show the bottom 2/3 like that. And then I just do a shuffle for no good reason, and I just shuffle off the first few cards, and I put them right back on top. Okay, so I've shuffled down the first, I don't know how many cards I got here, 7 cards or whatever, and I put them right back on top. So I shuffle through a few, put them right back on top. And then I follow that up with another shuffle where I'm taking the bottom 2/3 or the bottom half, and then I do an in jog and then shuffle off. I pick up at my break as I'm talking, and I do another shuffle off to my break. And essentially everything is in the order that I started with, except, I think I might have botched that up here. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, we're good. Everything is in the order that I started with. The only thing that's changed is that the first few cards have been changed in their position. Okay, so I have a situation here where the first card I turn over when I get there, if I can do that, there's an out in which I actually can't turn over the cards, will be different than what it appeared at the beginning. So on video, that can be kind of a stumbling block. Additionally, the cards that are on the bottom would be different as well because I've shuffled off the bottom 2/3 of the deck. And they have changed position. So it really ought to appear as though the deck has been shuffled fairly at the beginning, even though I'm not making a big deal out of it. Okay? So here's my arrangement. 9 down, I have a 7 of hearts. 13 down I have a 2, 14 down I have a 7 of hearts, 15 down I have a force card, 7 of hearts, and then the next card is also a 2. Okay, so we're set to go. Now, the purpose of the force card, 7 of hearts, a double card, is that you can do a riffle force or a waterfall force here in the same way that you would do a short card. The idea is that the double card springs a lot heavier than the rest of them, and you'll notice if you try this that you can feel quite automatically that end. You can feel the end result at that double card. It will always want to stop, and there'll be a stutter at that moment. So it's just a force of timing. You tell them to tell you when to stop, and if they're taking their time and saying it, get all the way through it and say you want to be a little bit quicker than that. Okay, so you have to have a little bit of spectator management here in this type of a force. But you start to waterfall riffle these, and they'll say stop, and when they say that, you're just going to spring to the double card. Okay, and it'll leave you at this position where you have about a quarter of the deck left. It looks quite fair. Now I can give a genuine choice. I can say I want you to choose either the right packet or the left packet. If they choose the right packet, you can turn it up and let them see the 7 of hearts. If they choose that one, you can say, now this is your card. Now the next card here, you can see is a 2. Now I want you to do one of these pieces of math. Now the goal here is to make it look like you have to figure out what you're going to instruct them to do. If I say I want you to multiply or I want you to add this to it immediately right away, then it seems kind of forced. If you stop for a moment and think and say, well, 2 is a very low number, so here's what we can do. I can either have you multiply by that number or add it. Don't bring up subtraction or division or anything like that. Just say, I can have you multiply by that number or I can have you add it. Okay? And you could say, well, I don't want to have you divide because if you had an ace, you can't divide an ace. Okay? You can't divide 1. So I'll either have you multiply or I'll have you add it. Make sense? So it seems as though I've come up with the rules as I'm going along here. Now, if they add it to it, you'll end up at 9 from 7. If they multiply it, you'll end up at 14, which will get you to this card anyway where it's at. And that's essentially the effect. So they'll give you a number at the end. They'll either say 9 or they'll say 14, depending on what they've chosen. Now, for you on video, I added this little I'll riffle and then this squaring up thing just to kind of throw you off a little bit to think that there might be some kind of sleight of hand going on in here. But the truth is that this is clean, straight up. You can say there'll be a magic moment, and there it's happened. They'll give you either 9 or they'll give you 14, and you can count down to it. Now, if they give you 9, you have the extra benefit of being able to count face up. And you can count through the cards face up until you arrive at the 9th card, which will be your duplicate 7 of hearts. If they say 14, you can't count face up because at 9 you're going to go through that 7 of hearts that you had in there. Now what you could do is you could present it like this. You could say, I'm going to count through to 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'll even do it face up here so you can see what happens. 11, 12, 13, and then this is the 14th card, which would be your selection, the 7 of hearts. So you could do something like that or just deal them face down. It probably doesn't really matter. But you cannot deal through the 9th position face up if the number ends up being 14. Now you can come up with your own force card and you can come up with your own math and come up with your own presentation of this. But it's just an example of multiple layers of forcing that allow the end result to seem extremely random. There's choice in the matter, true choice. It's not equivocate. It's true choices in there. And it's all set in motion by an initial force using a double card. Okay, so it's a long trail of twists and turns and methods that keep the original method hidden from the mind's eye. Okay, so there we go. That is the next edition of Guess the method. Hopefully you get something out of that and you find a use for a double card for forcing, and maybe some other uses for it as well. So this is just one idea to use a double card that is not terribly apparent that a force has occurred. Good luck with that, and I wish you happy magicking.